by the way, Brian Flores ain't too proud to take that job either. He's like, okay, I'm going to sue the NFL. I'm a football man. I'm going to be working in the NFL. What do you think of this move, Harry?
I think it's great. From a football perspective, being able to add Brian Flores to your defensive coaching, to be able to be hands-on with players, and I think a spot where they kind of had deficiency last year was in the linebacker group. So to have him, a guy be a head coach for the Miami Dolphins with the accolades, and they won 8 of the last 9 games, so I still don't understand how he got let go. But the history with him being in New England, being a teacher, being a guy who can relate to players and get the best out of them.
Who can beat Bill Belichick.
Yes. And
he beats Bill Belichick all the time.
And we hear Rob Nikovich talk about how great of a hands-on coach he is. I know a guy, Jason McCourty, who speaks very, very highly of Brian Flores. Now, from an organizational standpoint, I will say this. I'm not surprised that the Pittsburgh Steelers, the one team in the National Football League, took the hot road, because we do have a Rooney Rule because of that family and their history. Now, I will also say this. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't always popular. In Pittsburgh, what they did in hiring Brian Flores and Mike Tomlin, I thought it was the right thing to do because he is a football junkie.
Do you think it's coincidental that the one black coach to start this hiring cycle out of 32 teams in the NFL is the head coach of the team, independent of the Rooney Rule and the family? They instituted the rule and everything. Who makes sure Brian Flores has a job in the NFL?
I don't think it's by mistake, because the simple fact that you see a man who is so talented in the coaching world, you don't want to see him get blackballed and casted out.
You'd like to have him whiteballed, which means you have a job.
Well, you use the word coincidental, and I would say, no, it's intentional.
Yeah.
That's what it should be. We've talked about that multiple times on this show, that when you are in positions of power, to look at the landscape of what's out there and say, okay, well, you're overly qualified, and you're black, and there's issues that we've been talking about here, and we're the family that created the Rooney Rule, and we're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm Mike Tomlin. Like, that's done with intent. I think this is a bad look for the NFL, though. That
I agree.
Let's bring it back. For the one thing that, Max, you opened up this whole conversation with, the one black head coach in the NFL, the one family that pushed for a rule that was then created to provide more diversity to a league that people have been saying for a long time, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? Then goes out and hires the black coach who has a discrimination lawsuit against the NFL. It's almost a way of looking back and flipping them bird and saying, yeah, we're going to force you to change.
Oh, that's such a great point. You know what it is, Harry?
They took the road less traveled, Max.
Yeah, what they did, Jay's point to me, they're holding a mirror up to the NFL.
From the inside out.
They're forcing you. They're forcing the NFL to see itself for what it is. It is not coincidental. That's why I use the word coincidence, Jay, that in my view, that the one team to start this hiring cycle with a black head coach hires the other black head coach or person of color who's coaching in the NFL, who loses his job, it seems for no good reason, and then is not offered a job anywhere else in spite of the fact that he's a guy who teams don't quit on and who beats Bill Belichick constantly, right? He makes sure. So when people talk about, well, because a lot of white people, I think, don't really fully understand it. You think, well, wait a minute. Just because the NFL is 70+% black doesn't mean that the coaching needs to be 70% black. It could be 50%. And my response to that would be, that's true. It could also be 90%, right? Right? Much more, but it's not. It's 90-something% white. It's not coincidental, Jay. And that point is so good. It's a mirror up to the league.
And also, I know Brian Flores and his crew. I sat down with him for a long time, and I talked to his crew all the time. So it's interesting what their strategy was, right, in order to constantly keep the conversation at the forefront. Now think about what this does. You have to see me every day. You have to hear me talk about it. You have to hear me, and you're doing it from the inside out. Every Sunday, I'm going to have some kind of microphone in my face. You continue to apply pressure, but now you're inside the beast. You're not on the outside looking in. You're inside looking out.
So I just think overall it's a great look for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for Coach Flores, even though it's not a coordinator's position. But you don't want to be sitting at home if you love football the way we know Brian Flores loves football. You want a job. So he has a job right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And yes, he can rub it in people's face.
Can he play quarterback? Because that's what they really need. Steelers need Flores to play quarterback. They need a quarterback.
But I will say this also. The Pittsburgh Steelers organization, and I was proud of Mike Tomlin hiring Terrell Austin as a defensive coordinator. They also just hired a guy that coached me in Tennessee my last year, Frisman Jackson. And they had a black receiver coach, but they didn't retain him, and they brought Frisman in. But they have about 8 to 10 guys on their staff, coaching staff, that are people of color.
Let me ask you something. What would it do to you as a player? And let me phrase this carefully because, look, Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers want to run the best team out that they possibly can, and that's why he's so competitive and has never had a losing season, even without Roethlisberger. Never had a losing season. Brian Flores can lead a group of men and coach a team, and they don't quit on the guy. I get it. That goes for black players, white players, and whoever else, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you both, as African-American athletes who competed at the highest level, if you were playing the position that a black coach who was fired, it seems, without a good reason, and then not even really given a look by the league for any job for which he was qualified, meaning there were lots of head coach openings and there were coordinator openings, right? And he didn't get any of them. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.